Well, we are just over a week away from presenting The Handmaid's Tale, the opera, here at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. After a hard day of rehearsal, we are outside touching a little bit of grass, as is sometimes a little bit needed. It's especially needed in the case of the two people singing Offred in this production. Camila Montefusco is performing the role of Offred, and Amanda Weatherall is singing the role of Offred's double, or Offred in the before times. Thanks so much for taking the time, you guys.
Our pleasure.
So maybe, Camila, we'll start with you. What was your sort of first interaction with this story, this iconic Canadian story, like?
It was right when I arrived in Canada, actually.
Wow.
I was presented to the book first, and I completely fell in love with it in a very strange way.
Yeah, right.
It's a pretty heavy story, but I think it's a very necessary story. So that was my very first time actually reading it. It was 7 years ago.
Okay, what about for you, Amanda? What was that sort of first interaction with this seminal Margaret Atwood classic like?
Well, I think I saw the TV show first, and it because we just didn't have it in BC. In my high school, we didn't do the book, but once I was in university and the movie TV show.
Whichever one it is.
Whichever one it is, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
There you go. So when you were first offered Offred, so to speak, that's a fun play on words. What were the things that were first going through your mind as you were trying to contemplate how to bring this character to life on the stage?
So I was offered it last year, and I really was very interested in the idea of being the before times person and the aspects of that carry forward into the actual Gilead times, and that was, I think, the thing I was most excited about, to see the juxtaposition between the two.
Absolutely. What about for you, Camila? What was that sort of experience like as you started to dive into this music and this story and started to bring Offred to life through your performance?
Well, the first thing I noticed when I looked at the music was that I would never leave the stage. And that was a new one for me.
Yes, right, for sure.
I'm like, okay, I better be very well hydrated before we start the show, because it's nonstop for her the entire time. And it's truly a mammoth of a role. I've never tackled anything like it before. This is the most exciting and challenging role I've done to date.
So what are the things that you use then as you're going through this role and preparing it? How do you start to tackle this big challenge? What's the process for approaching this character and all of the terrible things that she encounters throughout the show, not to mention the difficulty of the music?
Yes, I would say that I start from a very rational point of view, where I find major scenes and major moments, and I can try to build, the storyline. Also because the story goes back and forth in time, it's very difficult to look at beginning, middle, and end. So I chose some moments to focus on, and everything else I would be threading, the line in between.
Sure.
That was the very first step.
Absolutely. When you are thinking about the sort of emotions of this character, what does it take to ensure that this performance stays grounded and that you're still able to sing, but also that you have to handle so much of what's going on?
I would say that I allow myself to feel all the feels before and after I sing. I really want to do my very best as a singing actress, and I believe I need to be at my absolute best to offer that to the audience. So I love to feel things, but I try to do it previously, to the moment I am on stage. And once I am there, I allow it to come, but it's all very controlled. There's a technique to feeling on stage, and to the most important thing for me is for the audience to feel, not me necessarily. I am already going through the whole thing, singing this amazing music, dealing with my colleagues and acting and doing all the fun things.
Yeah.
So I have my fun, and I want the audience to also be able to take that in.
Of course. What about for you then, Amanda, to build on what Camila was just saying? How do you then balance those emotions as you encounter them in, as you said before, the time before that your Offred lives in?
I think for me it's a little bit more, I guess, straightforward, since I'm not seeing it from a different timeline, I suppose. So because I'm going through them in the moment of like in all the different before scenes, we start off quite happy, and so it's really nice to have that little bit of happy in the opera, but then it's surrounded by so many dark things that for the audience it just becomes a more effective kind of foil, I suppose. And then as we go through and we get to some of the more difficult scenes, like the worst dream and the just before the worst dream, it's a little more, I think, just being present, because in those scenes I don't sing a huge amount, so
Sure.
I have a little bit more of an advantage that way.
The worst dream being the scene where your daughter is taken away from you at the border. A harrowing scene, to say the least, and something that recurs many, many times throughout the show. And now, of course, the both of you are not the only ones handling some difficult subject matter, although you certainly are the focal point. This is a difficult show emotionally for the entire cast and crew. What sorts of things have you noticed, Amanda, as the entire cast has been having to stick handle these emotions, these complicated feelings, all while trying to make sure that they are presenting the show as best as they can, as Camila was saying before?
I think there's a great camaraderie between all of us. We all kind of know we're going through this together, and so we have worked together really well to make a very open space. And I think one of the greatest advantages of this particular production team having somebody there who's specifically there for our mental health, and making sure that we are all feeling happy and healthy.
For sure.
And not too down in the dumps. Yeah.
There are so many people in this audience who will be familiar with Handmaid's Tale, the story, and you mentioning that you saw the show version of this first. I'm wondering what you think the audience will take away from a story like this, presented in opera form, that so many people are going to be familiar with, versus if they had just read the book or watched the movie.
I think the big difference here is that we have less scope that we can possibly do in the amount of time. So our directorial team has really chosen to focus in on the loss of the child and the fact that she is a mother before she is a handmaiden. And so I think that it's a little bit more of an intimate look into that specifically, rather than a broader political statement.
I see. Camila, you encountered this story coming to Canada, not having been raised here, from Brazil, as you mentioned before. What do you think that people who are seeing this maybe for the first time, or encountering this for the first time, maybe not having that sort of baggage of this story being so steeped in Canadian sort of cultural lore, what do you think that kind of an audience might take away from seeing this, having encountered the story of The Handmaid's Tale for the very first time?
I believe they may be shocked with how much of what they see is unfortunately a very present thing in nowadays. It's very sad to say that. I say that with there's a lot of weight in this, but I think they will understand also why we should be telling this story right now, why they should be presented to it for the first time. Despite the weight of it, there's a lot of learning there for all of us. I believe cautionary tales exist for a very good reason.
Yes,
you
sure.
know, and I think if they are mentally prepared to take in the show, which is a lot, but I think it's 100% worth it. if they're open to that, there's a lot that they can take back home.
You touched on something really interesting there, which is that if they're open to it, to see a story that has, unfortunately, a lot of parallels in current society, how do you as a performer, to say nothing of the audience, how do you as a performer stick handle the sort of parallels that you see between what we are portraying on stage in The Handmaid's Tale and what is happening in real life? Or in other words, how much of real life are you thinking of when you are stepping into Offred's shoes?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind is how lucky I am to, in this day and time, be a part of this cast telling this story right now here in Canada.
Yeah.
It just brings me back to how lucky I am. And it reminds me, that we are in a place of privilege where we get to do this. And so I take every second, none of it for granted. Every moment here for me does feel very real. I don't allow myself to go to the extremes, of the story.
Yeah.
I think we need to protect ourselves to a certain point, but it just gives me a lot of context, and it allows me to come back to the present.
Sure.
I think as we feel everyone very present in the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about for you, Amanda, when you're considering that audience who's going to be coming to see this show and they're having to sort of confront things in the theater that they're already confronting in real life, and maybe they're a bit more nervous about coming to see a show like that? What would you say to them about the value of coming to see this kind of a show?
There's a lot of value in seeing this kind of a thing because it's very real, but it is also very it's a window in which you can look into it from a different perspective, perhaps.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot to be in the room to see it, and I think it's gonna definitely affect a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have lots more to say about The Handmaid's Tale in the coming week here on Classic 107. You can follow along at classic107.com and on the Classic 107 app. Amanda Weatherall and Camila Montefusco, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us more about your journey as Offred and Offred in the time before, and all the best for the performances coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.